would write his sermons, and then he would open when I would know he's through writing and that I could talk to him, was when he'd take out a needle and thread and sew that sermon into the shape of a book.
Huh.
And all his sermons were sewed together. Like if this was the book,
yeah,
he had sewed, put a
so he wrote them in sort of a book format.
in a book form. That's right. And then he would, when I'd see him get the needle and thread out, I knew he was through. I could go in there and talk to Daddy. See? Mama would say, "Leave Daddy alone. He's working on his sermon." And I wouldn't be permitted to go in there. But when I saw the needle and thread come out, well, that meant he's finished.
Now, you don't happen to have any of those sermons?
I had a handful of them. I might have 2 or 3 left. I should have brought those down here for a
show and tell, huh?
Show and tell. But I'm pretty sure I've got several of them.
Uh-huh.
And most of them were, I got out to his house one time, and he was busy standing next to the garbage can and cleaning out a large, what do we call a big thing that when you moved and you packed all your clothes in not a suitcase, but a big thing. It had handles on the end and would take 2 people to pick it up, you know.
Huh. I don't know.
Well, anyway, that was full of sermons. And he was standing next to the garbage can throwing them away. And I said, and I grabbed in the garbage can and pulled out a handful. And I happened to have a bunch of funeral sermons for people here in our church that and then in turn I would give them to the family if they still were part of our congregation. Well,
yeah.
I'd give them to the family. I said, "Here's the sermon my dad had for your mother when she died," and I'd give it to them.
Now, when you spoke a little bit earlier about the parsonage. Do you remember anything about it, like the floor plans, like if you'd walk
from the old church? I mean, the original one when we got here?
Where was it?
It was next door to the church.
Just right next door, kind of where we are now, almost, or?
Yeah. And it was, I don't want to lose that. Irish Mail is what that was called.
Huh.
And
that's
the Irish Mail.
Yeah.
And that's what I'd ride around the block in. Here's my father's Ford, what the church gave him in 1924 or 20 something. I think you might have a better picture somewhere.
Hard to see a little bit. There you go.
Here it is.
Oh, there's a picture of the Ford there. Right on the side of the church there, huh?
Yeah.
The church bought him that, huh?
That bought him that, yeah. I think it...
1924.
I think there was a bill for about $500 for a brand new Ford.
Wow. So, the parsonage was right next door, huh?
Right next door, and I was going to show you. It's a picture in there of the parsonage, I think.
Well, I'm just trying to find it. That's the old church building.
All right, now, long in there.
There you are. That's 1913. Is that the right parsonage?
That's not, no, that's not the parsonage. There's the parsonage.
Okay. We'll get it out here for the camera.
That's
That
where,
one there.
now,
28 West Wright Street.
yeah. And now,
Then later,
after my father got the call to come, they said, Pastor, they got in touch with him and said, we're doing some repair work to the parsonage and we're not through yet. So if your wife and your child could delay coming, it would help us, and you could stay with one of our members. Okay, so he lived for about a month, I guess, or 6 weeks, but probably only a month, with the Aikens, A-I-K-E-N. And he stayed with Mr. and Mrs. Aiken. And my mother and I stayed with my grandmother in Fort Wayne a little bit longer. Now, why were we told not to come? What was being done to the parsonage?
They were fixing it up for you, right?
Yeah, they were fixing it up for it. But the main thing, what were they doing? They were putting lights in. When Pastor, the previous one, Reinhardt was there, they had a gas jet in every room. And you had a light, you know, a gas burning light is all you had. And so they electrified it. They put electric wires, well, it wasn't too fancy. It was just one light in each, but what was short was plugs at the bottom, you know, in a room. They were scarce. They didn't have any.
Do you have any favorite memories of being in that home?
Yeah, I guess so, but I mean, it was, I was probably there for 3 or 4 years, and I was working at the YMCA and also working at the Pensacola Hardware.
So when was the new parsonage built?
About 1930, I'd say. It might have a date in there when it was built. It was built on 12th Avenue, and that was a nice area of town. That was high-class living when we moved out there.
1913 to 1941 was the parsonage, and then 1942
was the new one.
That was over in 1212 East Lakeview.
That's right, 1212 East Lakeview.
Okay.
And about that time, I got drafted. I was in the service.
What branch?
The Army.
Okay.
I just got married. I went first. I was sent down to Camp Blanding to get it decided whether they'd take me or not. And when I got there, why, I was just turned down because of vision in one eye. One eye I'm practically blind in, and they turned me down. So we come back home, and my wife and I decide, well, they're not going to take me, so we could get married. We were thinking that if I get drafted, and shipped out of the country somewhere, that we wouldn't be getting married until later then, see? But when we found out that I was going to be, when I went down there and got rejected, we came back home and got married and went on our trip, our honeymoon.
Okay.
And when we came back, the